Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Coffee Pro Friends. Today's episode is brought to you by Coffee Fest, happening in Los Angeles this week between August the 25th and 27th. Pick up a discount code in our comment section and head to coffeefest.com to pick up your tickets today. Today in the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about leadership, particularly let your leaders lead. This topic came up in a conversation when a friend asked me yesterday, what should I do about X, Y, and Z? And this person works for somebody, and the leader should have been the person to decide on the direction of which way the situation was going to go. However, my friend, being very proactive and wanting to do things the right way as often as he can, decided he wanted to show initiative and make the decision on his own. And in the discussion that we had, I kind of mentioned to him, hey, listen, your leader is there for the purpose of making these decisions for you. So I want to talk about that today on the podcast because I'm finding more and more that people are taking on board the responsibility that they shouldn't be putting on themselves and removing the onus from whoever is your leader, in air quotes, because remember, as somebody who isn't in a leadership position, you may not have all the information. And so if you're making decisions that leaders should be making and you're not given as much information as they have, you may perhaps not be making the right decisions. And look, your leaders are given the responsibility that they're given, whether they be the business owner or whether they be management. They're given that responsibility for a reason. They're not always going to get it right, but in the positions that they're in, part of that is about responsibility. And by thinking that you should be taking on board the decision making yourself, and mostly because it happens because people are trying to be proactive and to do the right thing, and that's fucking great. It's awesome. I love seeing that initiative, but it doesn't always work out well, and it could very much come back and shoot you in the foot. And that's because despite your efforts to be proactive, making decisions that could have consequence without having all the information could take you down a rabbit hole that's different to the direction that the team as a whole is supposed to be heading in. So what would be an example of what I'm talking about? And I didn't think of one beforehand, but we'll think of one off the fly. So if we're looking at a situation whereby you need to make a decision on whether you're going to order a particular product or not. So, or a quantity of product. Here's a great one. All right. So, for example, in the past, in my own situation, I was a barista somewhere. I was the head barista somewhere, but we were coming up to a very important weekend. It was like some public holiday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, something like that. And the cafe I was working in at the time was one of the busiest cafes in Sydney. It was called Bill's. And the coffee, and we're going back a good 15 years here. Typically on a weekday, we would have ordered somewhere between 8 to 10 crates of milk, which, to give you an understanding, that's a lot. That's 9 litres. No. That's about 18 litres. God, I can't even remember how many litres are in a standard thing in Australia, but it's a lot. On a public holiday weekend, we were ordering 30 to 40 crates. And it was my first weekend of a public holiday, and I didn't know how much milk we should order. And I was still learning the ropes of being a head barista at that time. And this was the perfect example of when I shouldn't have made the decision for myself without getting counsel from a leader. So going to the store manager, going to the restaurant manager and just saying, hey, I need to place this order. I just need some guidance with regards to how much milk I should order. Now, what's the big deal, right? It's just milk. I order milk anyway. Well, because on these kinds of weekends, most cafes in Sydney make a fucking killing. And so if I order not enough, we're going to lose money. And if I order too much, we don't have space to store the milk because we didn't have a cool room or a walk-in. So these are the kinds of decisions that if you don't have the experience that's necessary, letting your leaders lead can, one, help you remove unnecessary responsibility that you're placing on yourself to the people who are paid to have that responsibility. And two, it gives you the opportunity to learn about the thinking that goes behind making these decisions. And this is really important in your development as a coffee professional. On the other side of things, another example would be choosing coffees. And these decisions can be like, they can make or break a business sometimes. So an example of this is if you're a roaster and you've been given the responsibility of being part of the group of people who are making a decision. Even by group, it could be 2 people or 3 people, a small group, and you're making the decisions together. If you're a puppy roaster and you're a part of that, I would encourage you, I have seen this go the other way, where people who have too much bravado in these situations are giving their opinions, and by being invited to the table to give their opinions, they are in all their enthusiasm, and it's great to see enthusiasm, but it's a little too enthusiastic. Fight to the hill for the kinds of coffees that they think should be represented by the business. Now, a lot of the times your leaders will invite you to the table to give you exposure to what it's like to make these decisions and to expose you to the process, the cupping process, and the discussions that go into this kind of a situation. You are not the person that's making the decision. That is what your leaders are there for. Being exposed to the experience is something that your leaders do to reward you or teach you. Let your leaders lead. And there's so many examples that these situations apply to. If you are stuck in any kind of a decision, if you don't know which way to go, avoid just making a decision for the sake of making a decision anytime. As somebody who owns a business and who has had people totally fuck things up because they were trying to show me that they were ready. And in my business, the way that I run things is nobody ever gets into trouble. So part of our culture is that we never focus on the getting into trouble part, that a lot of businesses, want to punish people for stuff that they've done. We don't have that in either Elixir or Map It Forward. The way that we approach it is that if somebody does do something that, for lack of a better term, is a mistake, the first step is fixing it. The next step, once it's been fixed, let me put it this way. The first step is notifying leadership, letting them know of the intended action that's going to be taken to fix it. Leadership offers any assistance they can, but gets out of the way to allow the person who messed up to fix what they've messed up. And then the step after that is we regroup and debrief so that we can dissect that with no focus on punishment. But we dissect it to help the person who kind of tripped over the situation figure out how they could not do that again. Now, a lot of those things could have been avoided had somebody just picked up the phone and said, hey, this is what I'm intending on doing. What's your opinion, or what should I do? Let your leaders lead. That's what they get paid for. That's what they have worked to be into this situation for. And good leaders they're not authoritarian. Good leaders will give you the room to be in your own lane. And the reason I'll use this analogy a lot, the lane thing, is your leaders are kind of overseeing everybody in their lanes, if they're good leaders or effective leaders. And they're looking out to see if you're drifting too far into somebody else's lane, and they're looking to see what's coming ahead of you because they're usually plotting the course that everything's going in. So they know what's coming before you know what's coming. And your leader will help you stay in your lane and give you a heads up to some potential roadblocks that may be coming in your lane. Let your leaders lead. I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, either in the comment section or on our socials. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.